Good morning to all. I'm glad to see that you're all here today with us. My name is Jovana Vlaškalin and I'm from Biosense Institute. I'm here on behalf of SmartAgriHubs project to wish you a warm welcome for today's first business module that we're organizing in collaboration with digital innovation hubs that are involved and engaged within SmartAgriHubs project. So as I said, today's workshop is the first one in a row. The title is Business Plan Development and Mission Vision Strategy Entry Level. Our goal is to organize at least three more modules on different business related topics that will help and support primarily flagship innovation experiments within SmartAgriHub project to improve their business activities, maybe to get closer to the market and to fill some gaps in knowledge or maybe practices that they have at this period. So we really hope that this series of business modules will help you improve. We also invited, in addition to initial flagship innovation experiments, we also invited our open call experiments, which are primarily digital innovation hubs. But as these business modules are rather towards more like general level topics and the overall business they look at the overall business development, we believe that they can be beneficial to others, but not also flagship innovation experiments. The recording will be also available and will be placed on the innovation portal for others to listen to it. Not to take any more of our valuable time, I would like to introduce our presenter today. We have Digital Innovation Hub Smart Digital Farming. Mr. Bart Minne is coming from Smart Digital Farming via Age, and he's both an engineer and he has both an engineer and business degree, combining both worlds. This allows Bart to make a bridge between research and development project and business goals and company needs. Bart is responsible for ILVO's Digital Innovation Hub, and Hub is focusing on data sharing initiatives, building on ILVO's data sharing platform, DjustConnect. And Bart aims to support companies with their digital transformation. So Bart has a valuable knowledge that he would like to share today with you, and I would like to give floor now to Bart to take it over. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Very kind. So welcome everybody. Indeed, today we're going to talk about a business plan development, mission, vision, strategy. The title is a lot shorter than the whole activity. There's a lot that comes with it. There's a lot to do. So first of all, I want to say hello, and then maybe I was wondering about specific specifications or things that you'd like to learn in this session. The reason why I'm asking is that it's a very broad topic. I think if we want, we can have like 20 different follow-up sessions to talk about business plan and all the different building blocks. So if there would be any things that you really want to go into, then I would suggest put them in the chat. Maybe that's probably most convenient. Or if there are any questions during the talk or during the session, please interrupt me. There's going to be some buzzwords. There's going to be some things that might be new. Don't worry, interrupt me. Make sure that you understand what you want to learn. There's time for that. So as I said, the agenda is quite simple. It's going to be about business plans, and it's going to be a lot just about it. But why would you need a business plan? There's a big term, business plan. It's an overview of about your business goals and the methods of how you are going to achieve these goals and a given time frame. That's basically, in a few sentences, what a business plan is. But it also provides an overview of the business, of what it does, the background, financial projections, strategies. These are all very content-heavy words. business plan is usually that. So business plan is a roadmap providing guidance for the business, and that's very important. You don't just write it for an external use. It's really a tool that you make for your own business to guide you, to help you make decisions on a daily basis, to keep you on track, to make sure that you are aligned with your strategy or your mission and your vision goals. But usually, that's more the practical part of it. People start writing a business plan when they start looking for financing. So bank loans, investors, things like that. Their first question usually is, do you have a business plan? And then people start writing it, although it should be be taken care of before that. But that's just practical remark there. So what's a business plan? It exists in a few different formats. The full business plan is a hefty document, quite easily overshooting 100 pages, if not 200. There's a lot of information crammed in there, and that's usable only internally and allows you to help and make your decisions and makes you think during the process of making it about all different aspects of your business. But there's the light version and the very light version. There's the elevator pitch. That's a term that came into mind in the days of Steve Jobs. It's quite popular these days. And he had the tendency to ask you when you stepped in the elevator with him, so why are you here and why should I keep you employed? And if you weren't able to explain yourself and make sure that you explained why you're valuable for the company in the next 30 or 60 seconds, well, then you got your resignation. So that's where the term elevator pitch came to place. And that really is a very concise, brief introduction of 30 seconds to 60 seconds about what you try to explain. Then you have your pitch deck. It's a PowerPoint, graphic visuals, or any tool basically that you want to use, where you give a brief summary of your business plan that allows you to introduce it to stakeholders, to investors, without having to flood them with a lot of extra information that might not be usable. And then there is the operational plan, which is a derived version of the full business plan, which is really the tool that you use internally to provide guidance on a daily basis that you can share with your management, your employees, and make sure that they are aligned with your goals. As I said, there's a lot of buzzwords in there, and that's actually a thing that I did or used to do when I went to congresses. I played buzzword bingo, prepared myself a sheet, and talking about business and business plan is an ideal way of dealing with all this terminology. There's a lot of potential for all sorts of buzzwords. Some will be covered during our session here today. Some will not because of time constraints. But once you've made your business plan, some or most, if not all, of these buzzwords will become very clear to you. Anyway, let's dive into it. What's a business plan? There is no just one typical business plan structure. I used this one, but you can move things about. There's no rule on how you should structure things. This is just how I propose it, how I organized or at least structured this session. But it's up to you to move things about if they feel more natural in your business plan development. But I think the first line, cover page and table of contents, that's probably the easy one. Do keep in mind that although there's a lot of information crammed in your business plan or will be crammed in your business plan, making it visually appealing is definitely something that you want to take care of. Because especially if you go to investors, they see a lot of business plans and you want to stand out. You want to be that fresh one. You want to be the one that gives them energy and interest to read. Your executive summary, I think that's clear. That's the thing you do at the end. So let's dive into that first real content block: vision, mission, strategy. People usually think they clearly know what they mean until you start asking what's the difference between mission and vision, and then it becomes interesting. So I won't ask you, I will tell you. So first of all, vision, top one. Let's read the business aspiration. Where do you want to go? Your mission is, why does your company exist? And I'll dive a bit further into it, but I want to make sure that we are aligned on these terminologies. So your vision and your mission are translated in objectives, your target goals, real things you achieve or try to achieve. And then you have your strategy. Your strategy is the means of the way you're going to realize these goals. Your approach is your execution plan, derived from your strategy, and then your tactics. That's really what is called the day-to-day activities, small focused actions, which are again derived from your approach. So how do you develop your vision, mission thingy? Sounds nice, but it's really important and really important that you know where you want to go. If you make an analysis between successful companies and companies that are struggling, then quite often is that successful companies have a clear vision, have a real knowing of where they're going, whilst companies that struggle are still wondering, what is my USP, my unique selling point, where should I focus on, what's differentiating me in the market, and where do you want to go to. Some examples that you can make is you want to have like drought resistant seeds that you develop to make sure that we're climate independent, or cost neutral water storage, all quite hot topics these days. And it's important that you know both inside and outside your organization what's going on. There's some tools on it. I'll come back in a bit. But especially that's internal feedback that's quite often forgotten. People involved in your organization or people working with you know have a lot of valuable information that you should use and leverage in your business plan. So defining your vision. What do you do? How do you do it? One of the typical questions that you ask is where do you see your organization in 3 to 5 years and 10 to 25 years? So it's very far ahead. And if success was a place, how would you know if you've gotten there? People often say, I want to be successful, but yeah, what is success for you? Does it mean you want to have a walk around the park? Is it a successful day for you? Or do you want to run 10 miles? There's all different things for different people. And so what is your big goal that everyone contributes to? And again, make sure they involve in this process in getting that information, all different stakeholders, both internal and external. And to give you an idea of what a vision could look like, LinkedIn is quite good at structuring their mission and their vision. LinkedIn says it's our vision to create economic opportunities for every member of the worldwide working population. So they really say, look, I want to have a dream. I have a dream rather. I want to create opportunities for every member of the working population. That's their vision. That's the thing that they work to daily. And now their mission is how they do it, what they do. And going straight to the LinkedIn mission, because that will make the difference clear, is they want to connect professionals all around the world, enabling them to become more productive and efficient. That's what they do. You have that platform, you have that social network, creating them all together, and that's their mission. That's why they exist. That's what they do on a daily basis. And your mission, and I can't stress this enough, you have to make it simple to understand. It's not a marketing exercise. Marketing should be involved in gathering the feedback, but don't let them write the last sentence that you want to put on your website. It has to be buzzword free. It has to be clear. Everybody, and I mean everybody, even outside of this business, should be able to understand what you do, because this is the first sentence that you should tell your new employees that's your billboard of what you want to do, and it has to be crystal clear on what you do. Then we have the values. That was not really in the pyramid, but it's something that you need to think about as well. So the values is, let's say if your organization was a person, how would you describe it? Would it be kind? Would it be stressy? Would it be very competitive? Would it be, I don't know what characteristics you would like to put on there? Integrity is one of the popular ones. So really, what is the DNA of your organization? What are your values? And why do you need it? Because it helps guide your employees to make decisions on a daily basis towards the realization of your vision and your mission. And that's ultimately what you're working on. So defining these values really supports your employees in growing, in gaining that decision power. So the objectives, going step one down on the pyramid ladder, that's really the strategic goals that we want to set for ourselves, for our business, that we want to achieve. But it's critical to only put a few there. Usually people get very ambitious in the beginning and they will have like 25 in there, but then that's impossible to focus on. So it's really key to only set a few there they want to work towards. Focus is key. Later on, if you become a big multinational corporate business, you can have like a multitude of there. But initially, when writing the business plan, focus is key. Focus on a few. Don't try too much. That's really critical. So again, coming back to that pyramid that we saw earlier, vision. Hopefully, that's a bit more clear what it should be. That's that dream. That's that ultimate goal that we're working towards. The mission is what do we do today? What we're working on. Objectives is obviously the targets that we set for ourselves. Do we want to work with it? And then there is strategy. And strategy is crucial, but so difficult, because strategy tells you how to achieve your objectives. And given any football coach, they all have the same objectives, but it's quite difficult to achieve their goals or any other thing. So why is it that complex? Because there's so much that comes with it. Just talking about you need to develop a strategy, that's cute, but it's very difficult. And I took a snippet from the structure of the business plan here on the left. And basically everything that you do in the business plan helps you towards developing that strategy. Now, what I did in this session, I'll go briefly through them. And I really mean briefly, a few slides max per section. But are actually topics that should be covered in a full separate session, and that probably are going to happen if I remember the program correctly. So these are things that should be covered. But there's a lot of tools out there to guide you in that process. For example, one that we also use with our DIH and also at ILVO when talking to companies is a business model canvas. Might be familiar, might be not. But it's basically a tool that put your, and I see that the quality is not that brilliant, sorry for that. But in the middle, it says value propositions, which is basically your explanation of why a customer should buy your product or choose your service compared to others or alternatives. Because that's the ultimate goal that you're working towards, be the preferred partner of a customer. Now, the same business model canvas put everything on the supply side on the left and everything on the demand side on the right, which means on the left, on the supply side, you have your key partners, your activities, your resources, and your cost structure. So everything that you need to do in order to provide that value proposition. And on the right side is everything that your customers want, how to reach them, how to engage them, and ultimately, obviously, the revenues. And that's basically what's on there. And providing, or at least completing such a tool, but then really thoroughly and not in a bar in 2 minutes, filling these cells, but really going through them and talking about and thinking about all the critical aspects of such an ecosystem helps you structure and position your organization. It's one of the tools. There are many more. I like this one because it's clear to explain. It's easy to understand, but it's usually a bit more complex to complete. But it's one of those. Going step down, so we did vision, mission, strategy. That's the one line that we did earlier. I skipped business description because, well, describing your business as something that should be rather easy compared to all the other ones. Your history, who are your people involved, why do you want to be there, etc., etc. How do you came to be? That's something that should be quite natural because that's stuff from the past and present that you're describing. Well, so the others are a bit more future telling and advanced. So first of all is the competitor analysis. Who are you competing against? If you know who you're up against, then you can probably anticipate. So first of all, you have that freedom to operate analysis. I didn't put it anywhere earlier, but it's crucial that you do it, and it can be upfront of the whole start of your activities. But make sure that you're not running into any IPs or legal issues, or that you're allowed to deliver your service or product in the country that you're targeting, etc. It's crucial because it's quite depressing to see a lot of effort and good intentions going to waste because of one little rule in any legislation or one IP blocking aspect. So freedom of operate to analysis is quite important. And then the real grinding starts. What usually is done in competitor analysis is really understanding and learning about your competitors, really profiling them in all their aspects, knowing who you're up against, and I mean really going detail as much as you can find their backgrounds, their locations, their history, but their financials. If they're publicly listed, then that's usually easy to find. But if they're more private, that's the trickier thing. Products, their portfolio, brands, what are their strong preferred products, which are more generic, marketing, on which promotion are they pushing, the facilities, how many plans do they have, what do they invest in new machinery, in new technology, what does their logistics chain look like, are they able to bring their product and service themselves to the market, or they need support, their people. Very important. Who are the key people in the organization? How many do they have? But also, what is their background and expertise? Do they come from? What different experiences do they bring to their organization? And also, not to be underestimated, their compensations. Because if you're competing against somebody who's paying a lot more than you do, then there's a good chance that your people from your organization might, well, find another employer. And then obviously their strategy. You want to know what they're doing, what they're aiming for, what their targets are, and last but not least, their acquisition ideas, because that really gives you an idea of where the company is positioning themselves. And that's a lot of work. If you're in a market with just one competitor, well, then still a lot of work, but usually there are more than one. And then it requires you to really deep dive in there. There's one thing that you could do if you notice that you're in a market with a lot of different competitors. For example, you want to open a bakery. There's no use in listing all the competitors that you have worldwide, because that will be impossible. But what you can do is create a competitor profile and allow yourself to cluster your competitors a bit to make sure that you have profiles of each and one of these competitors, so that, again, that you know where you're up against. But that really depends on what type of activity that you have and how you should approach things. Again, I said I'm going to touch them briefly. We can fill the rest of the day with a competitor analysis, but I think that would be too much. So I want to skip ahead already to market analysis. And that's a fun one. That's a lot of Excel fun that comes in there, a lot of buzzwords, because what you want to do is you want to predict the market size, and that's ultimately a number in euros or dollars or whatever currency you'd like to use, where you have three abbreviations that come into mind immediately if you talk about this: is the total addressable markets, the saleable addressable market, and the saleable obtainable market. And what's the difference is the total addressable market is the full market that you could theoretically address with your product or service. If you have a car, then that means that every person in the world that wants to buy a car could be a potential customer. But the saleable addressable market could be if you develop Ferraris, then there's a good chance that average Joe is not your target customer. And then that full theoretical market size drops quite a bit. And then if you sell Ferraris, but only in Europe, then your saleable obtainable market only becomes Europe again. So then you're not looking at the Americas, you're not looking at Asia, etc. So there's a difference in there. And it's interesting for yourself to know what your potential market could look like. It's a theoretical exercise, but it gives a good idea of what potential revenues you could generate. Again, knowing about your competitors and what market share they will go for, then you can see what you position yourself, and you can derive from there, or at least give yourself some sort of idea whether or not your business plan could be feasible. Not easy, but very important are the market trends. You really want to predict what changes or what driving changes there might be towards demand. You want to predict political decisions, but honestly, if anybody could, I can write a business plan purely on that. But also environmental influences, price sensitivity. So how much demand changes when price changes, something with current inflation is quite important. The market growth rate, a factor of explaining how healthy that market is towards businesses. Is it fully saturated, doesn't grow anymore? Then it's probably not that interesting to be competing on that market. If it's fast growing and there's few competitors there and there's still a lot of untapped potential, then it could be very interesting. But also the industry cost structure, by which I mean is that for some industries, you need quite some experience in order to be successful. The electric car market, for example, although the electric car exists already for centuries, and that's not a mistake, in centuries it is. I think it's from somewhere in the 1800s. There's quite some experience learning curve that had needed to happen in order to be creating effective electric cars that we see today. But also distribution channels. How difficult is it for market players to get their product and services towards their customers? Do they exist? Do you have potential distributors that you can work with, or do they need to be created? That's quite some differentiating. And then all the key success factors that you can list. For example, having access to key resources. Again, coming to that electric car example, critical minerals to build batteries are becoming a scarce resource these days. So having access to them could give you a competitive advantage compared to other marketplaces that do not have that access. So it's very complex. Again, there are tools, there are things that you could help, or at least things that you could use. One of them, for example, is Porter's 5 forces that you have. That's a methodology that you could use, and it tries to allow you and think about what's your competitive situation and what's the competitive structure of that market. And it works on 5 different entities. Is the ease of new entry in the industry. So how easy is it for new players to enter the market? If you have a bakery, basically anybody with an oven can enter. To say it very simple, I know I don't want to offend any bakers in here, but compared to having a new car company, that's a different sort of investment and a different level of easiness in order to enter that industry. Especially if you have an industry where there's a lot of research involved, like the pharmacy sector, then it's probably a lot more difficult to enter that market. Also, the number of rivals in the market. Do you have one? Do you have dozens? Do you have thousands? It's a good indication of what is the current market situation. If you have just one competitor in there, but there's a lot of potential in the market, it's probably interesting to move in there as well. What is the risk for alternatives? If you say, look, I want to have a car company, but tomorrow everyone is going to buy a helicopter because of reasons, then that risk involved, that should be also evaluated when you're trying to define your competitive situation. And then you have 2 others. It's the bargaining power of the suppliers. So how strong are your suppliers in the industry? And you want to know that because they could drive your costs. They could if they are very strong and very united, or there's maybe just one, then they have a very big impact on your cost and ultimately on your profitability. But also the bargaining powers of your customers. If they have like a ton of alternatives that could go to, then you probably are a bit more wary of what your customers want and want to make sure that you really stand out against your competition. So it's that balance, that whole ecosystem structure that allows you, that Porter's 5 forces allows you to think of. And another one, and that's a popular one, well known, is the SWOT analysis. It's really about understanding what your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are in your market, and making sure that you think of that. And again, usually when people start about, I know this one, and they fill it in like 2 minutes, and I say, okay, great, with the preparation, now we're really going to work on it. And it's really important to think about these things compared to your competitors. It's not just I'm happy I drink a cup of coffee every morning, so that's a strength. Weakness, we have none. But it's really important to really go through them and make sure that you fill out your strengths compared to your competitors. Because you did your competitor profiling earlier, you have an understanding of what drives competitiveness in your market. So then here, really thinking about all these 4 aspects compared to the other actors or at least players in the market, really helps you structure things. Another tool that you have is a PESTLE analysis. These are is a series of 6 6 thematics that you want to go to. First of all, you have all political impacts set, regulations, law, restrictions, things that you need to be aware of when handling this. You have all economic impacts, cost of capital, interest rates, economic growth. Starting a new business when we are heading for a crisis might be an interesting exercise. Then could be probably better to wait a few years until the crisis is over and the economy is booming again. But also social aspects, both cultural, age, and all the other social aspects that you could think of. But also technological. How much investments in R&D have been done? What is technological change? Good example there is the electronic camera. It was first developed by Kodak, and they went bankrupt because they were too early. So things need to happen now. Developing a mobile phone with just a keyboard instead of a touchscreen is probably something that you don't want to do at this point. Or well, in some cases you might, but anyway, let's skip over that one. All legal aspects, all different regulations and laws that are in place that affect your organization. That you should be taking care of. And then last but not least, but very relevant, everything with the environment, climate, weather. But given the sector that we're in, I don't think I have to explain that one. So market analysis, big exercise, important exercise, tricky exercise, but very, very interesting one. Then there's a marketing plan. Again, that's content for a full session. I'm going very briefly on it. I do believe that there is a session planned already on marketing plan, so I'll refer for that one for a lot more details. But it's just very, very briefly, is you set a short and long-term marketing goals that you want to work towards, hence the fact that it's a plan. You want to create a description of your target audience and their persona, meaning what's their typical consumer profile. And then you want to have some ideas on what your high-level marketing strategies are, the 4 Ps that you have there. Just one thing that maybe I want to give away that you need to keep in mind there is you want to try to sell a painkiller instead of a vitamin. People are very, very easily influenced by a solution that solves their current needs. People are very difficult to convince that they might need to invest in something that possibly in the future might happen. Look at every investment that we need to do with climate change. It's probably the best example that you have there. And also another one with your whole marketing structure, be where your customers are at. And that's easier said than done, but for example, I don't think anyone has ever seen a Ferrari ad on the television, and it's because Ferrari simply says our target audience does not watch TV, so we're not there, which is unfortunate because I probably could use or enjoy one, but I guess I'm not the target audience. Marketing plan, there's a lot more. We'll leave it for that other session. So very briefly, then the operations plan. It's a derivative of your business plan, but it's really an action plan, a strategic action plan on how you want to reach your technical goals. So how are you going to realize your goals and by when? So there's a timeline involved, there's budget involved, there are success conditions involved. There's a lot that you need to take into account. Most importantly, you need to make it measurable. You want to set some KPIs, the things that you want to be able to give to your employees and tell them this is how you can be successful. And they're basically 4 different business metrics. You have financial, you have customer, you have learning and growth, and you have internal business processes. And for each and one of them, you should be able to set objective measures, targets, and initiatives that you can measure, that you really can say, look, if we work towards these objectives, we do it like this, realizing these targets and taking these initiatives, then we're really able to work towards, again, that vision, mission, strategy, structure that we set in the beginning and make sure that we're successful. And it's really the crucial thing that you want to do here is translate that big, brilliant idea in something that is doable on a daily basis, something that you wake up with and say, look, today I'm going to do that, and I know that's the next step towards that ultimate goal that we're working towards. And then one of the last things, but unfortunately definitely not least, is the financial plan. That's basically translating everything that you've said earlier into monetary values. Starting first of all with what is your business plan that you are working towards with, and that's a business model rather than business plan. So that's really about how are you going to price your products. What are you actually selling? Because that's something that people might often be mistaken. They develop a sensor and then they say, look, I'm going to develop a sensor, but actually it would be it would be a better idea rather to not sell the sensor, but sell the service or the advice that you can get with the sensor. It could be that they sell the sensor to get the data and create a digital plan on it. So there's a lot of different possibilities that you can have, and it's really key that you select the right one, because it will allow you to position yourself again against your competitors. These days, to give you just a common trend, a lot of organizations, a lot of companies are stepping away from the typical hardware infrastructure sale that we've seen in the last few decades, and they're moving towards a product as a service. So they're really selling you, well, that sensor example, for example, they give you the sensor and then they sell you the software where you can get the advice, where you can the input based on that sensor. Another one is the financial forecast that you need to create. An annual projection should be projection, a project for 3 to 5 years. That's actually a fun one. The basic trap that a lot of people go for is they put everything in Excel, they create a brilliant model, looks great, and then they make assumptions and they are billionaire in 3 years. In Excel, that's very easy to do. In reality, that's a different case. So you really have to be wary about your assumption that you put in that deck. And if you talk to an investor, they don't care about that graph that goes up, because everybody has a graph that goes up. It's really about what are the assumptions that drive that graph and how sensitive are they to change. For example, if you want to sell a sensor, you're going to be a billionaire in 3 years, then the question is, are you the only one selling the sensor? Are actually your customers asking for that sensor, or is just you with a clever idea and basically nobody's asking for it? What pain are you solving? What needs are you addressing? And these are the things that you really need to consider when you create that financial forecast, because it's very easy to create an upgoing graph, but it's really tricky to support or at least explain all the decisions that you made in going there. There's a few things then that you need to know. There's a balance sheet, which is an overview of your financial situation of the company. There's an income statement, which is an overview of the profit and losses that you have. Cash flow analysis, because one thing you need to remember is cash is king. You can do a lot with your organization, but if you run out of cash, you're bankrupt. So cash is king, regardless of what you do. And then there's the capital budgeting. That's really about analyzing of what investments you should or should not make, because every monetary value that you invest in some products is going to be tied up in there, and it removes the opportunity from you to invest in something else. So there's an opportunity cost that you need to take into account, blah, blah, blah. Again, every one of these lines is potential target for another session that probably should be addressed somewhere else. So I didn't go in there. I know it's very brief. I know it's a lot of different names and types and things like that, and I'm happy to talk about them. But for this introductory session on what a business plan could look like, that's about it. And then we have to finalize with the things that you sit in there. People are very, very, very keen on learning about your successes, on what you already did. And for example, things that you could put in here is a successful fee and a milestone. I participated in the SAH business plan workshop. So there you go. This is pretty much what I had for today. I want to thank you. And if there's any questions, then I'm happy to address them. If not, then assume everything was crystal clear.
Thank you, Bart, so much. I understand it was a challenge to really pack everything in 1 hour, less than 1 hour session, but it gives a good glimpse of what the business plan is and how it should be approached. And I would like to now ask our participants if there are any questions. Actually, I do see one from Stavros. So you mentioned, I'm reading it. So you mentioned a lot of things that need to be covered by a business plan, from financial, IPR, marketing, etc. Based on that, how many people should be involved in drafting a business plan in order to be able to cover all these aspects? Is it possible for a small company or a startup to draft their own business plan, or maybe they will need external help, such as consultants? Thank you. Yep.
It's a very good question, and it's twofold. You can do it on your own, but I would not advise it because, well, you don't really need a consultant. You could, but they're very expensive. But in Europe, in a lot of countries, there's a lot of free support available for startups and business plan writing, and organizations and incubators, they really want to help you with that process. Obviously, you have to do the grinding yourself. They're not going to give you a list with all the competitors. They're not going to give you a prediction of your market, but they are more than keen to help you. And in every European country, if you Google for it, you'll find them easily. It's very interesting to see how much support actually there is for SMEs, or at least startups, because everybody wants to create the biggest startup valley of Europe. For economical reasons, I guess. But really do look out for support. So you can start off it yourself, but do get some external advisors involved.
Thank you. And I mean, this is probably not an ideal question, but I'm just wondering, how long does it take to draft or such a plan, as it seems to be ongoing process as well, right? It doesn't stop once you're done, you continuously improve it. But let's see, to see the first draft, how long does it usually take if you're working intensively, let's say?
Yeah, a month easily.
Yeah, a month, yeah.
Easily a month. And then it could even be longer if everything is completely new. If you just had a brilliant idea and you have to start from scratch, if you have some experience, and then a month. Yeah, it takes quite some time, but it's really important to go through all these facets of the business plan to make sure that you set yourself up for success.
Yeah, and understand actually what it is that you need to do. All right, so you mentioned good practices, and you mentioned sharing of experiences that people like to learn from each other and hear your successes. And in that light, we also have a question for you from Kiran. He's thanking you for the presentation and asking if you could share your story about your business plan development. What was the main challenge and how did you overcome it?
The main challenge that we have with the business plan development is always about the financials. The easiest part is the concrete profiling of your competitors. It's talking about your marketing. But as soon as everything becomes numbers in Excel, then the temptation to make yourself a billionaire in 5 years is so big because it looks so good, and you risk of getting a tunnel vision because you just see, you start dreaming of basically winning the lottery. It's the same feeling that you can generate for yourself, and it's very addictive. And at that point, what you need to do is get some external advice in, get some people that are not connected to your organization, not connected to your idea, and get their feedback, and as much people as possible. And then explain your story, make sure that you are open for their feedback. Might not necessarily be what you want to hear at that stage, but it's better to be open to feedback and adjust your plans rather than to invest a lot and having to go ask for the bank for another loan because you're in trouble. So the biggest advice that I can give you here is be open about it. Obviously, not too open. You don't have to put it on Facebook or whatever. Make sure that the people that you're working with, that you trust them, or go to official bodies that are able to give you confidentiality. but try to get as much advice as possible in there. Do talk to local entrepreneurs that know the markets, that have potentially similar products. I think I still have to meet a single entrepreneur that is not willing to talk about a new business plan or give you advice, or is just eager to see you be successful. So there's really the thing, try to get out there, try to get that feedback, and make sure that you stay, or at least escape from that tunnel vision that you might introduce on yourself.
All right. There's also a comment from Martin thanking you on a sharp and rich presentation and right level on details, and also asking for some examples. But also, let me just reflect. So you are also providing assistance to others, such as innovation experiments or SMEs, to prepare their own business plan. Is that so?
Yeah, in collaboration with the local authorities. So in Belgium, Flanders, the region that we're at, there's a lot of support available for business plan writing. So what we do, we offer obviously advice from our DIH on business concept, on market needs, on testing, product validation via the connection with our living lab as well. But the pure grinding, as I call it, on the business plan, that we try to involve the existing bodies that we have. They're really specialized in that, because purely on capacity reasons. We don't have enough capacity in-house to deal with all that. We would love to, but so therefore we send them off. Yeah.
Maybe perhaps any reflection when you're talking to these different organizations or governments, so those that are preparing or want to prepare a business plan, maybe any observation from your side in that regard? What is the main challenge they're facing? Would you be able to say kind of in that process of thinking and preparing a business plan, what is the most common, I would say, challenge that they come to?
Starting.
How to start?
Yeah, just starting with it, because there's so many people out there with brilliant ideas, and they somehow convince themselves that it's impossible to create a business with that, and really enabling them to start with writing a business plan, because during that process your ideas will mature and alter based on the feedback that you gather for yourself. But really starting is the main hurdle in this process, especially because it's such a big exercise. There's a lot of investments, obviously, in time and effort that you need to do, and it's a difficult exercise because you're going to ask yourself a ton of questions that you have no answer to. None. The profitability of your main competitor, you have no idea, and these are very difficult questions that you need to address and find answers to. But really starting is the main thing, and then having that idea of that vision, where do you want to go, and keep reminding yourself, this is my ultimate dream that I want to realize, and as long as you keep that in mind and are able to keep yourself motivated and convince yourself that this is the goal you're working towards and you want to do that, then you'll be fine. And there's a lot of support and help out there, but that's the most tricky thing and the most challenging thing to be done, because I can guarantee you at some point in time, even friends and family around you will start asking you, are you crazy? You invest all this effort and time in it, and why? There's nothing yet. And it takes time to be successful, because business plan is just step one, and then you have to do it. And then it takes a few years as well to become really that successful entrepreneur that everyone hopes and wishes for it to be. So there's that struggle. So I think starting and that internal motivation, I think those are the main hurdles that I see. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions for Bart? I also dropped a link to evaluation form, so kindly ask you to fill it in. We'll also send you an email after today's session, so but you have it handy here as well. So any other questions for Bart? Okay, all right, so before we conclude today's session, I would just like to inform you or remind you that we have 3 more modules in plan, and this was shared by email last week, I believe so. So pitching and funding opportunities will take place on May 19, which is next week. Marketing plan and market analysis, we will go deeper into it, and ecosystem collaboration and competition on May 24th, and creating and managing startups on May 30th. So you're welcome to join. And presentation, Bart, you will share presentation with us, so we'll be able to share with participants. Yes. So we'll share presentation. All right, if there are no other questions, then I think we can conclude today's session. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Bart, for sharing your valuable knowledge and experience. It was a pleasure to have you. And yes, we'll see you all next week for the next module. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.